GE, like Procter and Gamble, General Assembly, and he makes people happy at the workplace and improve atmosphere in the companies. I think this is a magic person for many companies. Imagine if people are happy at the workplace and they go to work with pleasure. Isn't it amazing for any company? Isn't making us happy? Dear Andrew, my question to you, if the person is not funny, if he doesn't have sense of humor, if all his jokes are stupid, or even he cannot make jokes, he's a very boring person. How to laugh, how to laugh. Maybe you will make other person uncomfortable, or maybe you will feel, I'm sorry, stupid. How to laugh if you don't have sense of humor?
It's a really important question to ask. And I think to your point of the idea of, part of, I think it's helpful to understand is that and the reason why I'm so passionate about humor is not necessarily just because it helps to make us happy in the workplace. That is a great side benefit, but I'm an engineer by background. So what I love about it is that it not only makes us happier, it helps us to get better results. So it's not just about, do you enjoy your work more, but can you also do it more effectively? And when we use humor appropriately, we can. And that's part of the skill of humor, is understanding what works in the workplace versus, say, something that would work on a comedy club stage. So a couple of things that people can do if they say, hey, I have no sense of humor whatsoever, or I don't know how to tell a joke, or every time I tell a story, I ramble and no one ever pays attention to it. A couple of things that can help. I think one is to be a little bit more of a humor curator. To effectively use humor in the workplace, you don't have to be the one that created the humor. But instead, you could say, hey, I watched this really funny TEDx talk that I think you would enjoy. And you can share that with other people. Or you can say, here's this really funny kind of cartoon or meme that represents kind of the challenges that we're dealing with in our particular project. And so you share that, and now people kind of start to laugh, and it wasn't something that you created. I think the other thing to leverage is things like images, especially if you're someone who's doing a lot of presentations, whether virtual or in person. Is a lot of our presentations use a lot of images that we find online, like on Unsplash or other websites, where you can kind of be like, rather than speaking to a wall full of text, you can say, okay, here's this picture that kind of represents or symbolizes the message that I'm talking about. You didn't have to be the one that took the picture. You didn't have to be the one that perfectly framed it, but you can allow that to do kind of the quote unquote humor work. So more important than being funny yourself is to create the space for humor, right? To create.
I can see that you're engineer, Andrew. I can see that you're engineer. Even, because out of humor, you made something very boring. You see, you're engineers. All engineers are very boring people. Yes, definitely. They do something, they do the scheme, you like to make the system. And this is your kind. But the topic is so nice, humor. You even made a system out of that. And I know your system. Now I will tell you your system, because maybe you forgot your system yourself. So your system is, you need to find something funny. You need to turn this something funny into humor, but imagine it or not, you need to apply that to achieve a goal. So you are a very pragmatic person. Even with that, you want to achieve the goal. So, what do you think a normal person who is working, who is under stress? You said 83% of people are under stress. Do they think, oh my God, where I will find something funny? Oh my God, how I can put it into humor? Or do you think a person will make such a long in his mind, or it's not that difficult as it looks like?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. You're exactly right. I love process. I'm an engineer. So that to me is exciting stuff. I'm very much an engineer. I've always been obsessed with efficiency and processes, to the point that I was born 3 weeks early. So apparently even in the womb, I was like, I don't need a full 9 months. I'm ready to go right now, right? I'm obsessed with efficiency and process. But you're exactly right. One of the things that we'll encourage people to do is to simply try to drive 1 smile per hour as a way to develop a humor habit. Try to think about what is one thing that you can do in each hour of your day that brings a smile to your face or the face of someone else. And so it can be intentional, like me, where I'm setting out a very clear process of, I want to achieve this, so what humor is going to be good for that? But that might be a little too process heavy for some people. Instead, thinking about, okay, if I'm going into a meeting, what's one thing that I can do to make people smile in that meeting? Oh, maybe I'm going to start with a story about my grandmother and how her thinking WTF means, wow, that's fun, and how that kind of makes a point that I want to try to make. Or they might say, okay, I'm getting ready to go through email. So what can I do in that email? So when I go through email, I like to read emails in a different accent in my head. where I'm like, okay, what would this be like if this was Arnold Schwarzenegger that sent this to me, or if it was a pirate, or something else, just because it keeps myself entertained. I think a big focus for people to keep in mind, rather than a specific process, is, again, not necessarily, if you're not skilled at telling a joke or telling stories, people don't typically laugh. Think less about trying to be funny and think about more about how do you make your work a little bit more fun.
Was there any story when you really helped organization, when you came and everybody were bored, were not excited? You come there and they become, ha ha ha, Andrew, come, we are so happy, when you changed the mood?
Absolutely. One of the things that we train on is an improv mentality called yes and that's one of the things that a lot of times people will say resonates with them. So yes and is basically the fundamental mindset of improvisation. If you take an improv class, you will learn yes and, because it's how we make things up off the top of our head and make things make sense. It's also a great way to use humor in conversation. Is rather than, if someone says something kind of funny, rather than just laughing at it and then moving on, you can yes and whatever they've said. And you can even do that with boring conversation. So even, the stereotypical small talk conversation of someone can be like, hey, how about this weather? You can be like, yes, and if you weren't inside right now, how would you be enjoying the spring weather that we're having here? Or what would you be doing indoors if it's cold? What Netflix series are you watching? And you're able to then pivot a conversation about boring weather into something a little bit more exciting. So yes and is one of those mindsets that resonates with a lot of our clients as a way to just continue the conversations in a more positive, light way.
So you are just a positive person. Every boring conversation you can make happy, and every strategic you can make it nice. So people, when they finish talking with you, they will just feel more happier than they came to work in the beginning. Why you mind in your LinkedIn profile, which should be a serious thing, you said, I like color orange and I'm a fan of milkshake. Do you think it's a good presentation for a humor engineer like you, for a serious person who works with Procter & Gamble and General Electric?
I think it is. It's small things. It's just a little bit of incongruity, because sometimes humor is something that's really funny. It's a clear setup and punchline. It's a clear kind of joke that we might share with people. But oftentimes it can also just be something a little bit different. People are, when they're on LinkedIn, they're not used to seeing people tell what their favorite color is, or that the fact that they like milkshakes. But by having that, people then will sometimes reach out and be like, oh, I love milkshakes as well. And now we have this instant kind of human connection, right? Which gives us a much further starting point than if we're starting out as more of like these kind of like pretending to be robots. And when we can bring our authentic self to work, that's what we're seeing in a lot of research around psychological safety and growth mindset. And to go down that, like, again, not necessarily humor stuff, but valuable research. It shows, oh, we actually get better results. We enjoy our work a little bit more. And humor just makes that whole process a little bit more fun. So exactly, yeah, my guarantee with the work that we do is that people will laugh a little bit and they will also learn. So we're bringing together those two things.
What to do with people if they are hurt by humor? Let's say if somebody will say, oh, Olga, you have very long nose, or something like this, and the person will say, oh, Mamma Mia, hallelujah, why they said like this? I'm so beautiful, I'm amazing, but why they said like this? What to do with people like this? Maybe you will make a joke, but somebody will be upset. Is it possible or no?
It's definitely possible. And that's part of understanding that, when you use humor in a comedy club, if you're a stand-up comedian, you can get away with a lot. You can use some of that aggressive humor. Same thing with your friends. You maybe kind of like banter with each other back and forth and kind of poke fun at each other. But in the workplace, the goal isn't necessarily to become a stand-up comedian. It's not to be seen as the really funny person. Instead, it's to be effective. And so you want to typically use more positive, inclusive humor, what you might call the newspaper rule. Like being comfortable with whatever you're saying. If it showed up in the front page of your hometown newspaper, would you be comfortable reading it? Or would you be like, I don't know if I'd want my boss to read that. Or I don't know if I'd want my mom to see that I made some fun of someone's nose or something. Then if it wouldn't pass the newspaper rule, then you probably don't want to use it in the workplace. And that's where you're understanding it is that just this different kind of style. The stakes for using humor at work are higher than in the comedy club. Because if you say something inappropriate, you could get reprimanded, you could be fired, you could lose a client, like all that kind of stuff. But the good news is that the bar for what is funny is so much lower. If you think about how terribly boring so many meetings are, just by incorporating something as simple as an image, now suddenly getting people to lean in a little bit more rather than having the perfectly crafted joke.
What is the best joke you did so far? What is the joke you will say, this is the best joke of Andrew?
Well, the best joke, I think the best joke that I've ever written, I'll tell you, because I think it's the one that's been stolen the most in terms of online. So you've actually seen it online before, but I can tell you that I was the one that came up with this exact formulation of the joke. The context is I was talking to my boss, and so my boss asked, "How good are you at PowerPoint?" So I said, "I excel at it." My boss was like, "Was that a Microsoft Office pun?" So I said, "Word."
Yes, I think I heard this. I heard this joke. That means you are really a humor engineer. Andrew, what you will recommend to people who are hidden heroes? Our blog, our program is called Hidden Hero. It's for people who are very powerful, who are very talented, but by some reason their talent is hidden. Maybe they are very funny, but they're afraid to tell jokes, not to hurt anybody, and they want to be on the stage, but maybe they are not on the stage yet.
Well, I think one, what I would start to say is the world needs your hero, right? Your heroism. They need your talent, that skill set. And so certainly it can sometimes feel intimidating, but finding the ways to get it out there. And you can always start small. That's what I did, was I started small first at Procter & Gamble used Humour for myself, just as a way to make my own work a little bit more fun. And then I started to share it with my close team, and they seemed to resonate with it. And then it kind of grew over time. And now, we have this organization that's worked with 250 plus companies all around the world. And so I would say with whatever your kind of heroics are, start a little bit small to get it out there. But the world absolutely needs what you're a hero in. And so do the small steps to get there. And I think having a sense of humor about it along the way can go a long way in helping, because from improvisation, I learned that failure is just data. Failure is not commentary on your worth as a person. It is not to say that you are either good or bad as a human. It's just to say the thing that you particularly tried didn't work. Therefore, you can learn from it the next time and do something a little bit differently. So have that growth mindset, yes, and your own work, and get that heroicness out there.
That is wonderful. I like to meet humor engineer, because I don't know if ever in my world, Andrew, I will meet somebody who will tell me, Olga, hello, I'm humor engineer. Maybe you are one and only in the world. And it was my big honor to see you. I wish good luck to your work. I wish you to continue to make people happy, to bring positive vibes into work, into boring meetings. Because I think with Andrew Tarvin, any meeting is not boring, because you have a humor engineer with you. Thank you so much. Thank you for being with us. And thank you for your great idea. I think, somebody who can invent such a job, he already is not a boring person. And really, I support you very much in what you're doing, especially in these pandemic times. We need more unusual people who are doing something unusual, who are not doing something, that people do every day. Like yesterday, I have Jim Cathcart from USA. He's a person who is 75 years old, and he started playing the guitar, and it was so nice. And he said that every day he's running a lot and he's doing 100 push-ups. This is amazing. I like creative people to do 100 push-ups. It's amazing, but also to do jokes during PowerPoints and boring meetings. This is not less amazing than that. Thank you so much for being with us. Stay positive, stay happy, and thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that.